What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Tellef here with AcceleratedDigitalMedia.com. And Tellef, I always like to mention other shows people should check out of the podcast. There's a good one with John Morris, who built up his agency. I know you know John. He built up his agency and sold it, and now runs Ramsey Innovations, and they really help people get a hold of their financials. So you could check out that episode. I did another one with Andy Crestadina, specializing in websites. He's also local in Chicago, and you can check that one out. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect their Dream 100 relationships and partnerships. And how do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run your podcast. We do accountability, strategy, and full execution of that podcast. For me, Tellef, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I've found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com. Today, I'm excited to introduce Tellef Lundevall. He's the CEO and founder of ADM, which is Accelerated Digital Media. And they're a firm specializing in growth marketing for the digital health industry. And Tellef does have a highlight film on YouTube, which I watched. After graduating from Brown University, where he played football, he pursued a career in the NFL. Later, he landed at Google, where he joined the founding class of Google's accelerated growth team and managed North America's fastest growing Google Ads accounts. And this led him to founding ADM. And he started with $2,000 investment in a MacBook, and he's grown it to more than 25 people, offering expert support. They do SEM, paid social, programmatic, data analytics, and much more. And the firm has made a name for itself as one of the premier agencies supporting the D2C digital health industry. They have clients like Talkspace, 30 Madison, NoCD, Picnic Health, and Nurex. And Tellef, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You must have really dug into the archives to find that highlight film.
Tell people a little bit about Accelerated Digital Media and what you do.
Yeah, I think you said it pretty well. I left Google and I started this firm as really a generalist growth marketing firm. We were lucky enough to get the attention of Nurex back in 2018, and that was really our first foray into digital health. Since then, we've gone all in on that industry. We've built 4 teams with the idea of how do we really approach patient acquisition? How do we best understand the patient journey? And how do we take the time within our partnerships to really dedicate the resources needed to understand the nuances of those individual businesses, regardless of the consistency within the digital health space. So that's a bit of how we got to the industry that we're working within. I firmly believe digital health is just going to become synonymous with healthcare. I think it's the future. I think we're seeing it within our portfolio and a lot of work our clients are doing. And the way that we contribute to that mission is with performance marketing and growth marketing services. So you listed them out. Really, it's not much more. Our goal is to be the best in the industry at what we do, not offer everything, but offer services with a superior level of quality. And we focus mostly in the media space. So if you can put ads behind it, put an investment behind it within digital, we're going to bring you the best management possible, the best investment allocation, really take a financial management approach to where you're spending your money online, and a very in-depth analytical approach to how to do it most tactfully and thus successfully.
And I want to talk about what you learned at Google and brought to ADM. But first, can you just When you say digital health, for someone listening, what do you think of and visualize when you say digital health company?
Yeah, so digital health actually, as a category, spans a couple different segments of industries. There's telemedicine, really, sending prescriptions direct to the patient. There's teletherapy, which are our therapy services direct to a patient. A lot of people became familiar with both telemedicine and teletherapy after 2020. Really, a lot of people in the industry say it gave this segment a decade worth of acceleration in just a couple months. But digital health also relates to mobile health, and it also relates to wearable devices. So, people that are wearing their Fitbits, wearing their Apple Watches, that are looking for solutions essentially to any sort of health questions or healthcare needs from a wearable that falls within that category. And then mobile health, anything that really takes advantage of your 24/7 access to your mobile device and relates to your health. It could be an app integration from some of the companies that you mentioned, for example, we worked with earlier. Could be an integration through the wearable device. But really, it's the 21st century enhancement of healthcare via digital means.
So, Tellef, I'm into health. I'd love to hear your favorite wearable devices that you like or that you've heard come highly recommended. I'm wearing my Aura ring. I wear it all the time. So I'd love to hear your favorites.
I'm rocking the Aura ring too right now. I like to wear watches, but I find I always take them off, and that kind of defeats the purpose as far as the consistency of the data that you're getting. So that's why I like Aura ring, is that I'm not prompted to take it off anytime I'm doing something athletic. And
I won't share my sleep score from last night. That's kind of not good.
Nor will I. But we're in the middle of the week, so we just got to get through hump day. But I actually think it's not a client of ours, but a company called NutriSense. I think they're started out of Chicago. They're a monitor of glucose levels, and it's you actually have to. I don't know the exact process. I've just done a lot of reading and know a couple people that have used it. I think I saw Rory McIlroy wearing one actually in some footage recently. But it's a glucose monitor, and it is invasive though, so you've got to somehow inject something into you. It kind of stays there in place.
Wow.
But I think from the conversations I've had with a couple people who use it, the information that you glean in terms of how your blood sugar levels are fluctuating throughout the day based on your actions, based on what you eat, is incredibly insightful, and it's accurate. It's not just from your skin looking at your pulse, which can be correct, incorrect, or just directionally correct. I think this data is pretty accurate. So it's on my radar, and I can't stand by it as a user, but I'm intrigued by the functionality, and it sounds like that company is doing some really cool things.
What else is on your radar? You probably come across cutting edge technology in your research. You mentioned, the Fitbit, we talked with Oura Ring, NutriSense is not something I've heard of. Are there anything, what else is on your radar from the wearable space? And not saying you've tried it or you're endorsing it, but what else are you thinking about?
I actually don't have the most interesting answer to this question, in that, wearables is an area that we support, but it's not the biggest area of focus. What we've found is there's still so much transferable strategy from the traditional direct-to-consumer e-commerce to wearables. And people aren't so much looking at them as a solution for very, specific healthcare needs. It's more so just general lifestyle needs, that a lot of the differentiation we've built out, the services that we've built out on behalf of our clients, they aren't, they're not a turnkey differentiator for these wearables. So I've got much more focus, despite my introduction maybe not insinuating so, within the telehealth, the mobile health, and the telemedicine.
Yeah. Just curious. From a Google, okay, I want to know, what did you learn from Google that you brought to Accelerated Digital?
First and foremost, it's the Google Ads platform. Google. Are you familiar with Google Ads? Your audience, you think?
Yeah, you can give a brief. Yeah.
Yeah, so Google Ads is the platform that one manages any sort of paid search ads. So you type your search query into Google, you get a bunch of ad options, you get organic listings below that. Google Ads platforms manages who and what shows up in those ad listings. It also allows you to buy YouTube and really any ad inventory that Google offers. So that was the first thing that I learned from Google, was a very in-depth look at how this platform worked and how to build a strong and successful and consistent and efficient program versus ones that are not. We had access to almost every ads platform in existence, and through talking to companies, we would occasionally get the ability to actually manage those platforms directly. You teed me up at the beginning saying I was part of the early class and the accelerated growth team. What was different about that team versus the rest of, from what I could understand, the entire rest of the Google Marketing Solutions division, which is really their ad division, is that we were taking over management of these programs. The rest of GMS, Google Marketing Solutions, they were saying, hey, these are the 3 hottest new features. You should think about implementing them for X, Y, and Z reasons. We were going in there saying, this is comprehensive support of your ads platform. What are your goals? What is your budget? We're going to do everything we can, and we're going to be pulling all of the levers and building the structure with this account to achieve, if not exceed, those goals. So it was a crash course that came with access to a ton of accounts, so you could learn a lot. And it came with all of Google's engineers' com docs, which are internal documents detailing how each individual feature works. So for those of us who were pretty fascinated by the platform and had a desire to kind of nerd out on it, it was an incredible crash course in how to drive value within that platform.
You probably tell how a lot of companies come to you and they may have tried something here and there. What are the biggest mistakes that you see when they come to you that the companies are making?
Within Google Ads itself, or
yeah, generally? Google Ads and YouTube.
Yeah, I think one of the more surprising mistakes is we don't always see companies structuring their Google Ads programs to optimize towards the business goals. The business goals might be the end destination. They come up with some sort of intermediary goal of, hey, let's optimize towards people who make it halfway through becoming a customer, or let's optimize for anyone who becomes a customer, not the best possible customer, which is really what the business is only focused on driving right now. And as long as there is some critical volume to really make the appropriate optimizations, or even allow Google's automation to make the appropriate optimizations, it's surprising to see and more common than you'd expect to see people building a program that isn't geared towards the specific end result business goal. That's the first, and I think most digestible for people that don't know Google Ads nuance. For those that are a bit more familiar with Google Ads and paid search, there's these things called match types. And based on the input you give Google, is it the most broad or the most exact being specific alignment of, hey, here's a search term, let's say, find a therapist near me. There's a massive range of the different search queries that your ad could show up for based on which match type you select. And one of the most effective ways to control budget and to control performance is to build as much of the program out in the most specific form of the match type. So this is more of a structural issue that we see within accounts, and a big part of how we can come in and not just be driving value through long-term strategic initiatives, but immediate restructure of an account to say, hey, you've got X number, let's say 1,000 keywords that are driving value for you. How many of those keywords are an exact match? If they're driving any sort of consistent traffic, our answer is every single one of them. Doesn't mean you should ignore the more broad match types to be able to acquire traffic that's less specific. But you should be focusing all traffic into terms that you understand. You've got very much consistency in terms of what they cost and how they perform. So really, it's match type organization is the other.
For the digital health companies, do you recommend they do YouTube ads too, typically?
Yeah, this, like a lot of these types of general questions, it depends is the usual answer. But in an ideal state, absolutely. A big part of digital health, and it depends, which segment of the industry that we're in. A lot of these segments, they've got pretty significant competition. If you want to buy, if you want to buy specific medication online, you typically have options of who you want to buy it from. If you want to get specific therapy, you typically have options. So there is an element of brand building, and because of the consumer perception within the healthcare space of how important credibility on behalf of these brands is, it's very important to have the touch points that build that credibility, that build the ethos, that say, hey, we're going to protect your data. We're going to do the right thing. You're going to get assigned to a provider who knows what they're doing and has a track record of success and cares about your well-being above making a profit. And YouTube is a great channel to reinforce those values.
Are there certain, best practices that if you were to think of best practice on YouTube for YouTube ads, what are some things that stick out?
The role that YouTube is playing within the patient journey should be very specific. And if there's the ability to do retargeting, Google limits retargeting pretty broadly within the healthcare space in order to protect an individual's privacy. To say, hey, if you go to picnic.com and you're looking for allergy meds, you're not necessarily going to have allergy. You're not going to have allergy medication ads following you across the web, right? But a lot of other platforms don't do that. Google does. But essentially the point I'm trying to make is with YouTube, you want to be specific about the role it's playing within that patient journey. And you want to say, hey, is this an individual that hasn't seen us before, may have us before? Where that ad is going to fall within that journey and the goal of that ad are two very specific questions that need to be answered in order to have the most effective content. Are we looking to teach someone what picnic allergy is, if this is going to be our example in this case? Are we looking to build credibility in picnic allergy in their processes because an individual already has an understanding of who we are? For example, they may not have been to our site, but have they expressed interest in other content that leads us to believe they could be open to telemedicine solutions within the allergy space. So really understanding what is the patient journey, what is the goal that we want this ad to play, and where is it falling within that patient journey is a best practice in the sense that all of your creative and all of your messaging is going to follow suit of those questions.
You mentioned, because I'm followed around all the time. I'll click on an ad and they follow me everywhere. What's the regulation like within the digital health? And because I know they want to protect, privacy.
Yeah. So you've got regulation, you've got state laws, you've got federal regulation, you've got HIPAA compliance, and then you've got the different rules that each individual ad platform ascribes to themselves and chooses to play by. If you were to go back, just a little bit more than 12 months even, part of our focus with our clients was, hey, how do we build the most effective retargeting strategy possible, knowing that Google isn't going to let us do it. Facebook, they're probably going to let us do it, but there's some, there's some lines in the sand that we better not cross. And then there's a bunch of other channels and platforms out there that we can buy this media and potentially violate someone's privacy or their violate their trust in a brand by following them around, as you said. But now we fast forward to today, our approach is very different. There's been a lot of scrutiny within this industry. We've got the FTC coming down on companies like GoodRx because of their passing information directly to Google, directly to Facebook, even if Google isn't using it. Cerebral came out with a statement not too long ago about their violation of PHI. And so our approach today is first and foremost, how do we do what's best for the patients for these firms? How do we do what's best to protect the credibility and the the standing within the industry of our clients, and how do we accomplish their marketing goals on top of all of that. So it's been an interesting shift in the industry. I kind of jumped to the ad policy and those regulations. I also mentioned there's HIPAA compliance, there's federal and there's state implications. Happy to unpack that a little bit more, but I think that this conversation is probably a little bit more focused on the ad policies.
Yeah. Why did you want to go into that space? Because it almost feels like you're somewhat handcuffed compared to other industries.
You're absolutely right. And I think ultimately limitations are an opportunity for differentiation and an opportunity for us to add value. I've looked at over 300 pretty sophisticated Google Ads accounts over the last 6 years to continue the Google Ads focus. And what we've seen is there is every single time we look at an account, an opportunity to make an account better. And there is a vast spectrum of the quality of support that companies can get when it comes to managing online ad platforms, whether it's Google, Facebook, Snapchat, the Trade Desk, whatever it is. There is a big difference in the level of support that these companies can get. Nonetheless, a lot of people look at the work that we do as commoditized. Hey, I've got X budget that I can deploy for management fees. I got to find someone that fits within that budget. The surprising thing to me is how few people who are making these decisions around their agency partners are really thinking about what is the value that's being brought to the table, because you can very quickly make up for 50% higher fees on a management side, as long as it's more of a flat fee model, I should say, as opposed to percentage of spend. You can make up for significant increase in fees if that has an impact on the overall program. If your overall investment strategy within digital media becomes 20% more efficient at acquiring a lead or acquiring a customer, most importantly, a customer, then you can afford to spend a little bit more on the management side. But that isn't necessarily how people approach it. So part of that inspiration was, okay, great. If that's the perception in the market, first and foremost, how do we show the success that we're having for our clients? That's something that I've been working on over the last 6 years. But more interestingly, how do we enter a market that is, number one, something that we're genuinely interested in, which is digital health. I give a little bit of background about my belief in the trajectory of that industry, and to be able to work in a space that has a positive impact on people's lives is also compelling and motivating. But the other question that I wanted to answer was, how do we make this harder for ourselves so the ability to be successful is more difficult and thus results in differentiator? What can we do to say, hey, not only can we manage an incredibly successful paid search, paid social, overall digital media strategy, but how can we do it while protecting patient privacy, navigating policy and regulations that differ from one platform to another, are a part of a consumer journey, which is much more complex when you look at the patient journey, the considerations that an individual is asking, the vetting that they're doing of their options, as opposed to the complexity of a thought process when someone's trying to buy the next jean jacket that they want. And all of these opportunities, all of these complications within that digital health industry are opportunities for innovation and beating the dead horse here, differentiation.
Yeah, I'm curious, from a digital health company perspective, who's an ideal company to work with you? What are their attributes? How big are they? Do they have funding? How does that work?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Whether or not they have funding, that one very much depends. If they're in a strong position in the business, if they're cash flow positive, if they're reinvesting into growth, then whether they've got funding or not is a great client for us. But essentially, we're looking to partner with companies that are looking to grow their businesses. And a big part of what makes this job fulfilling for us is the same way that we approach our own business. how did we perform last year? How did we perform last quarter? How do we exceed that? That's the game of business. And that's the role that we like to play alongside our clients, is really challenging ourselves to creatively and strategically accomplish their goals and beat what's been accomplished in the past. Happy to expand on that.
Are there certain, does the company typically have to be a certain base revenue for where it makes sense?
Base revenue, not necessarily. More so aligned in terms of media spend. So typically our clients are spending a minimum of $50,000 a month in all of their digital media. That can be broken up across channels, but 50K baseline, looking to grow, focusing in the digital health space. Oftentimes we see that aligns itself with direct to consumer digital health. Doesn't have to exclusively. We work with our clients to acquire providers, to get in front of payers as well. A lot of times there's somewhat of an empty room problem too. So we've got to both find the patients, the consumers, as well as the providers. So it's common that we've got a dual pronged approach in the support we're providing.
Do you find, I'm curious, some of the challenges in the industry, specifically, when this hit, I don't know if you saw that there were staffing shortages, and then that carries over to, well, we want to keep growing, but we can't because we don't have the staff. I don't know if you've seen that happen. And I don't know if they've shifted spend to, recruiting or something like that.
Yeah. So we do help several companies in the digital health space with recruiting, whether it's, getting providers or otherwise.
Did you see that as an issue during the past few years of like staffing shortages and that affecting, them wanting to, push the grow button?
To an extent, I would say there have absolutely been periods of time over the last couple of years where demand exceeded supply, whether that was due to recruiting and staffing, whether that was due to inventory, that happened. It hasn't been a consistent pain point, but it's been fleeting. And I think that's a big part of why digital health is so exciting. Digital health is about democratizing healthcare, providing access to many more individuals and lowering the barriers to access. So it allows providers to be more efficient, to see more people. It allows accessing healthcare to be more seamless. Yes, being in person is going to be a crucial part of healthcare for a long time, if not forever. But at the same time, there are a lot of ways to reduce the friction of people getting care that isn't necessarily requiring in-person treatment. So it hasn't been so much of an issue as much as I think that is part of why this industry is so exciting and part of the value we're trying to bring to our society and supporting these companies.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces with that industry. So, like you said, there's an opportunity when there's barriers. I want to talk about culture for a second. I know culture is important to you and it's important to accelerate digital media. And it actually started at Google. You were in charge of a bunch of the culture budget. And so I'm curious some of the things you did there and also what you do at ADM that helps with the culture.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think ultimately we are a service business. We bring a lot of tech and platform support to our clients, but it's the people at the end of the day that make what we do possible. And so naturally, the culture of our team and how we're approaching building this company is a big part of our ability to be successful. I really got that opportunity at Google out of luck. A friend of mine was on the team and she asked me to join the culture team, and it ended up being a great experience. And I think I took a lot with me as far as what you can do to engage individuals and how you can, I don't like to say treat your colleagues like a family. I don't look at this as a family. I don't think people in general look at business necessarily as a family. There are some exceptions to that rule, but this is a team, and camaraderie is important as a team. Collaboration is important as a team, and culture is important as a team. It's very difficult when you're starting a business, in particular when you're in a CEO role that's also an operator. My job isn't just to meet with all of my direct reports and their direct reports and have a press conference once a quarter. My job as a smaller company is much more operational than that. And we do things to bring our team together, to take the mind off of just client deliverables. So I think that's part of it. But ultimately, I think as long as you take care of your people, you invest in your people, you manage with your heart as well as your head. A couple of things we've done to back that up. We brought in a head of people operations, basically a head of HR much earlier than most companies would recommend. This allowed us to dedicate someone to the well-being of our team and essentially do everything that we can to retain people as long as possible. We rolled out benefits in year 3 after we had, our first domestic hires. We had a 401k very early on. So investing in your people and the services that the company offers its people is a big part of culture. And beyond that, treating with people with respect. But most interestingly, what I've really learned in this business is people want to be a part of something exciting, something that's successful, and something that's growing. So as long as you're doing the things that to me are table stakes, which is respecting and taking care of your people and actually backing that up with investment, then it's about growing the business. And it's about giving people an opportunity to expand their scope of work, to take on more responsibility. Not everyone is ambitious and everyone wants to grow. But if that's your goal as a company, those are the people that you want to attract. The way that you retain them, the way that you enhance your culture is by continuing to give them those opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. What about you mentioned engagement at Google. What were some of the things that you did to engage the team at Google and your company?
We would have things, breaks from the day that were very, very googly, whether it's a ping pong tournament or some sort of booze cruise, if we had a little extra budget at the end of the year. Really, it was about pausing, taking a moment to be together. And again, not just talk about client deliverables. I take a little bit of a different approach at this company because we're a little bit less googly, and that's by design.
I think everyone is. But
we didn't have 10 or 15 or whatever it was % of our staff laid off the last couple of months either, so that might be part of it. But that bringing people together and focusing on things other than just work was a focus. But then we would also do fun things like build prizes and incentives that showcase individual successes, but were really designed around the work that we were doing. So we were the culture team for about 150 people. So there had to be a lot of workload that was kind of segmented based on the different incentives within the different programs. But nonetheless, that was a bit more of like the exciting and engaging stuff that we would do from a productivity standpoint.
Talk about your values for a second. And you have your values spelled out on your website and how you came to those.
It was not proactive. I didn't sit down, at the early stages of the company and say, these are going to be our values. What I did was after our team grew to about 10, 15 people, I sat down, I interviewed the team. Essentially, I do one-on-ones with a lot of the team members for several different times throughout the years, and several are ongoing. But really, I made a point to sit down with everyone and get their input about what we do, what we talk about, what resonates with them. And these were the values that I landed on. What matters to me, what do people pick up on in terms of what we talk about on a regular basis. And what we do is we don't talk about these values. I just have integrated them into a lot of our workflows. And so, one thing we do, again, to be about it, not talk about it, is on a quarterly basis, when I'm giving my state of the company, I give an update to the entire team about how we're progressing, an overview of our clients, how we're progressing specifically towards our financial goals within the year. Very open book with the entire company. Hey, this is our goal for the year. This is the business model that we have. So really treating the team with a lot of respect. But in those meetings, I source input from everyone on the team to nominate individuals for different things that they've done throughout the quarter that exemplify some of these values. So it's not sitting down quarterly and saying, hey, we care about respecting every interaction. It's, hey, Erica Magnato, who you can see on the screen here, she really exemplified our value of respecting every interaction when she went to Sun Valley, Idaho, met with our client Decked, and did a 2-day working session to work through some of the challenges that they were having within a given quarter.
Love it. What made you decide to do an open book format?
I just believe in treating people like adults, and I think what would I want if I was in their seat? Part of how we compensate, and I'll tee this up by saying we've paid 100% of our bonuses every single year in the entire history of this company. But part of how we back into our bonuses is based on how we accomplish our goals. And if I'm going to be telling people, hey, in order to earn your bonus, we've got to be hitting these benchmarks from a financial standpoint, both gross margin and net margin. You've met with John Morris, so you might know what that means at this point. And on the agency side, that's who I got my financial modeling from. But if I'm going to hold them accountable to that, I'm going to treat them with respect. I'm going to tell them what the goal is. I'm going to tell them how we're pacing. I'm going to tell them what the outlook looks like to continue to accomplish those goals and to achieve the pace that we need to finish up at the end of the year in a way that's going to enable us to pay out 100%, which, yes, is dependent on company goals, but it's also dependent on the individuals performing. But we've been lucky enough to have an exceptional team these last 6+ years. What
did you learn from John Morris?
I have learned and continue to learn a lot from John Morris. The first thing that he made the most profound impact with was really the financial infrastructure that we need to operate successfully at larger scale than what we were used to. I've always grown pretty steadily. One step at a time, basically self-funding this operation since day one, and being cash flow positive to ensure which has really given us a very healthy business, which is what's important on the agency side, to be able to, again, retain people. But once we got past the $2 million mark, the need for more accurate projecting, more organization, the need to give our head of people operations their own budget and allow them to operate with some freedom for not only their needs as an individual with the autonomy that they deserve, but also for the sake of efficiency with workflow. That required better financial infrastructure. John helped me build that entire model, and that's been a game changer for us the last few years.
Well, if I want to talk about and kind of learn more about exactly what you do, and so I'd love to. I was looking through. If anyone wants to check it out, if you're watching the video, you can see what we're looking at here, which is the accelerateddigitalmedia.com, and they have a case studies page. And I know we were talking about Nurex, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you did with them.
Yeah, we took on Nurex December 1 of 2018. They had established themselves within the telemedicine space at the time, but they had very lofty goals, and we essentially took over their entire paid search program, their entire Google ads, and all of their Bing ads, Microsoft ads on the Bing platform investment that they were managing. Over the course of it's been 4+ years now, but over the course of the first 3 years of that partnership, Nurex was its own entity. We drove renewed success and record-breaking success each and every year. Ultimately, their paid search program became the most significant and consistent contributor to new patients month in and month out. And we did a lot of interesting things as far as, I think this case study, I haven't really been reading along as you go. But that specific case study, for example, that was our original playbook for how to integrate insurance language once our clients can take on insurance. So, we've learned a lot from working with them, and we've been really proud of the value that we've driven with them. We continue to support Nurex today. They merged around this time last year with 30 Madison, a company based out of New York, which owns several direct-to-patient digital health brands. And we've, after that partnership, continued to expand our support of the 30 Madison portfolio. So kudos to them. A lot of smart individuals at that company that took a very strategic approach to saying, hey, we just acquired a huge player in this space. Who are the partners that we should be working with? Where do we consolidate? And proud to say that we ended up as the agency on the digital media side that they continue to work with.
How did that transition work? Because I do find a lot of times when I'm talking to agencies, I've had them on, when something merges or gets acquired, everything kind of gets thrown out the window sometimes, and they bring on the people or companies that they are used to. So how did that transition work, and how did you make it smooth?
Yeah, loaded question for sure. Some background essentially is within 6 months, we had entirely new points of contact. And a lot of the individuals that we worked with at Nurex, who were just, phenomenal, smart, great partners, and great people, a lot of relationships that I still have to this day, but a lot of those people were gone. And, I think it's a delicate balance of continuing to maintain the partnership and the program that you've got in place, but being aware that there could be some new introductions and some additional relationships that you need to balance. During that period, you don't necessarily know the power dynamic, who's in charge of whom. You don't know who's being considered to take over whatever the new entity is going to look like. And in my experience, professionally, in my professional career so far, these integrations, they never go as smoothly as expected, and they never happen as quickly as expected. So it can be a bit of an arduous process to understand, how is this going to shake out? Who are we going to report to? Do we even have a chance of winning the business? If we do, who should we be having the conversations with? I don't think there's a cookie cutter approach to it, but it's very important in times of transition to sit down with all the senior members of the team and have a very thoughtful and strategic approach to how you're going to address what's hopefully an opportunity for the service provider.
I have one last question, Tellef. First of all, thank you. Thanks for sharing your expertise and knowledge. And I want to point people to go to your website, accelerateddigitalmedia.com, to learn more. My last question is just, when you think of on your career, football career, what was your all-time, favorite game that you look back on?
All-time favorite game. I've got to say my sophomore year, we played Harvard at home. I should say it was my junior year, but my second year playing. So my second time on the field. And we had just beat Stony Brook at Stony Brook. And we showed up at Harvard playing under the lights. And we took it to them. I scored the first touchdown of the game. We commanded the game. We walked away with a W. We started that season off very strong.
Love it. I want to be the first one to thank you, Tellef. Thank you so much. Everyone, check out more episodes of the podcast, accelerateddigitalmedia.com. And thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tellef.
Thanks for having me.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.